Connor Hellebuyck wants out officially of Winnipeg. The Sharks don't make sense, do they?
You're Locked On Sharks, your daily podcast on the San Jose Sharks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, my name is JD Young. On today's episode of Locked On Sharks, we're going to be discussing Connor Hellebuyck and make the case against why San Jose shouldn't be interested in the former MVP. We'll also discuss why it makes a ton of sense for the Sharks to be interested in bringing in Connor Hellebuyck. But first, we're going to dive into Mr. Hellebuyck and discuss kind of the reason why he wants out and kind of look at how his last season went and what the Sharks would be potentially getting if they traded for Connor Hellebuyck. So there has been percolations and rumors and such that Hellebuyck has put a trade request into the Winnipeg Jets, to try to get out of Winnipeg and go play somewhere else. But Thursday, we officially got that made public. So as his team released a statement, so word from Connor Hellebuyck, Winnipeg has been my home for my entire NHL career. I will always be grateful for my time there. I've never forgotten June 23rd, 2012. That's the day Winnipeg took a chance on a goalie playing in Odessa, Texas. I gave everything I had from that moment to prove that the Jets made the right decision. Several months ago, I privately requested a trade. I have tried to handle the situation quietly and respectfully while giving the organization time to explore its options. The training camp approaching, I felt like it was important to publicly confirm my request. My position has not changed. I believe moving on is the best path forward for me and my family. I appreciate everything Winnipeg Jets fans have meant to me throughout my career and hope a resolution can be reached soon. Connor Hellebuyck from Alpha Hockey as well. So kind of confirms everything that we expected, right? Was that Hellebuyck wants out. We don't know when a couple months ago, that could have been trade deadline. That could have been as soon as the season ended. Somewhere in that time, the goalie decided that he's done with Winnipeg, right? And a guy who's played a lot of games there, has been very important for them, has carried the franchise to relevancy, I would argue, over the last couple seasons. Ready for a new challenge and ready to try to win, right? You kind of see the writing on the wall with this Jets team that, it might be headed for rebuild or retool or something like that. So for Hellebuyck, it makes a lot of sense for him to potentially move on here. So if the Sharks were to acquire Connor Hellebuyck, what would they be getting? So that's what we're going to kind of go into right now, is just kind of Connor Hellebuyck, the player. And then we'll kind of discuss the pros and cons of the Sharks potentially acquiring him. So Connor Hellebuyck is a goalie who, again, from Texas, as we already read, who was a former, fifth round pick, back in 2012, 130th overall by the Jets. A player who, has become one of, if not the best goalies of this generation. You can definitely argue where he's at in there, but is a player who's, an elite goaltender and has been an elite goaltender throughout his career. 6'4", 207-pound left-handed shot, 33, just turned 33 at the end of May. A massive high trophy case. Olympic gold medalist, of course. 2 times he played college hockey at UMass Lowell before kind of jumping over into turning pro, where he spent some time with Manitoba Moose before becoming a full-time NHL player in the 2016-2017 with the Winnipeg Jets, and has been kind of the guy for them since then, where he is, basically you can plug him in for 50, 60 starts a season, and maybe that's reason where his playoff issues might come, kind of his playoff struggles might stem from that, but that's a conversation for a different day. But former 3-time Vezina Trophy winner, goalie of the year trophy winner in the NCAA, a former MVP Hart Trophy winner, has been multiple All-Star teams for the NHL, Olympic All-Star team, best goalie, Olympic best goaltender this year, World Championship All-Star. Like, this is a guy who's very much has been able to fill out his trophy case. This season, though, was a little bit of a down season, especially compared to Hellebuyck standards. So 57 games for the Jets. He did struggle with some injuries this year, but 286 goals against average, 895 save percentage. Gave up 162 goals on expected goals of 167.5. So even in a quote-unquote down year, still had a positive goals saved above expected with an 816 high danger save percentage. Looking at his hockey stat card, this season, the past 3 years, he's been a 92% WAR player, but this season dropped down to 50%. Is an insanely good even strength player. PK maybe a little bit down, but great in high danger saves, great in mid danger saves, quality starts. Like you don't get a lot of bad performances from Connor Hellebuyck. But unfortunately this season did see, just kind of a drop across the board when it came to kind of a lot of his stats, and combination of maybe just a bad year, Hellebuyck being, kind of injured, maybe, the Jets not having the best season as well. So, there's some issues there, but we'll get to those here in a minute. But still, Connor Hellebuyck has been, an elite goaltender for a very long time in the NHL. Looking at his evolving hockey card, he still puts up positive numbers despite the team around him this year not super great, but not the otherworldly numbers we have seen from Hellebuyck over the last couple seasons from him. So the important thing, though, I think, before we kind of get into the case for and stuff, is the Hellebuyck contract. So Hellebuyck is signed to he signed a 7-year deal at $8.5 million that started before the 24-25 season. He's in year 3 of that deal, and it currently has a no move clause. So Hellebuyck isn't going to go anywhere he doesn't want to go. So if for example, Utah, which would make a lot of sense, right? Or the Kraken or whatever, if some team that he doesn't want to go to, they put up an amazing offer and he's like, I don't want to go there. Tough. Like there's nothing that, the Winnipeg Jets can do. He has to clear any sort of trade. But again, a player who has officially put in a trade request. So 1 more year of no move clause. And then after that, it turns into a 10-team approved trade list for the 27-8 season onward. So his deal at $8.5 million goes through 2030 to 31. When he signed it, it was a little bit less than 10% of the cap. Now his cap hit is basically right around 8%, a little over 8%. I did the math beforehand. So 8.1% going into this season of the cap hit going forward for at least for this season. And as the cap continues to go up, that will become a smaller and smaller percentage. So Hellebuyck is a player who, at the best of times, is the premier or one of the premier goalies in the world. And right now, in even a bad year, put up stats that were way better than anything the Sharks have kind of seen over the last couple seasons. So does it make sense for the San Jose Sharks and where they're at kind of exiting this rebuild to pursue a Connor Hellebuyck trade? That's what we'll get to here in just 1 second. Workplace chaos hits, and sometimes you just need that right hire. Indeed sponsored jobs help connect employers with candidates who match specific needs like skills, certifications, and location. So less time gets spent searching and more time gets spent finding the right fit. People are finding quality hires on Indeed right now. In the minute I'm talking to you about Indeed, companies like yours will have made 27 hires using Indeed, according to Indeed data worldwide. Sometimes one great addition can have a ripple effect on everyone around them. When you find someone who brings the right skills, attitude, and experience, it makes the entire group better. That's why finding qualified candidates matters so much, and why tools like Indeed sponsored jobs can help make that process easier. Spend less time searching, more time actually interviewing candidates who check all your boxes. Less stress, less time, more results. When you need the right person to cut through the chaos, is a job for Indeed sponsored jobs. And listeners to the show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to help get your job the premium status it deserves at Indeed.com/podcast. Just head over to Indeed.com/podcast right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire is a job for Indeed sponsored jobs. All right, before we continue, of course, want to thank you for making Locked On Sharks your first listen. If you haven't checked out the Everydayer Club, now is a great time to do so. $5 a month, you get ad-free audio episodes of every episode of Locked On Sharks. So no, you don't have to listen to me say ads. So 2, you also get a weekly bonus episode throughout the season where we can talk about stuff that we just can't cover here on the podcast. 3, you get access to our Discord channel, plus a ton of other benefits. So go check it out over at lockedonsharks.supercast. Click the link in the show notes to learn more. So the case for Connor Hellebuyck is a pretty easy one. He's really good. This is one of this generation's best goaltenders, right? And for the Sharks, who outside of Mackenzie Blackwood, who is here for a year plus, the Sharks have had a lot of question marks in goal. If you bring in and acquire Connor Hellebuyck, you don't have any question marks in goal for presumably the next 5 seasons and the rest of his contract. And yes, I know last season wasn't the best, but I think there was plenty of evidence that wasn't happy, was injured. The Jets, not the best team around him. I think it's pretty easy to point to Connor Hellebuyck having a bounce back situation where he is again a premier goalie. And if you think the Sharks are going to, 1, be a playoff team this year, and 2, be contending for a Stanley Cup anytime over the next 5 seasons, and Connor Hellebuyck, that's a pretty nice goalie to kind of go into battle with, right? With Hellebuyck here, where you're getting, again, one of the best goalies of his generation. So you solve that. There's no questions. If you get Connor Hellebuyck, you have no questions about your goaltending going forward, or you should, because even as he, does get older and stuff, I don't think the slippage from Connor Hellebuyck being a, top 5 goalie in the league, maybe he slides down to, or at the end of that contract, maybe he's like the 12th best goalie in the league. And yes, you have Yaroslav Askarov, who you're hoping is an ascending talent. But, you hope and pray that Askarov is anywhere near as good as Hellebuyck, right? Maybe Askarov is. Most likely he's not going to be as good as Hellebuyck. Can he be in the same conversation? Maybe. But again, I think, realistically, thinking Askarov or any of the other Sharks goalies or prospects can be anywhere as good as the 3-time Vezina champion and former Hart Trophy winner. That's a lot to ask. That's a lot of pressure to ask, right? To have one of those guys maybe hopefully get to Connor Hellebuyck status. And again, even if Hellebuyck doesn't reach those heights again, it's pretty safe assumption that he's still going to be a really high-end goalie for the next several seasons, right? And as the Sharks team continues to build and grow, not having those situations, like how many games last year where, right, the Sharks are playing well and the goaltending fell apart. Not having as many of those situations where you're right, you're just not having a good night. The team's not playing well, but you have a goalie like Hellebuyck, where if he's out there playing, you have a chance to win every game, even if that game is a 1-0 win, because you have Connor freaking Hellebuyck back there. I think that takes a lot of pressure off the rest of the team. Now, I think the fault with the Jets is they got comfortable with relying on Hellebuyck that much, but there's plenty of hope, at least, that the Sharks offense and defense will continue to grow and not have to rely on Hellebuyck to be that type of every night he needs to have his A game type of performance for this team to win. And maybe you can become more like the Panthers, where you have Bobrovsky, right, who, yes, great team in front of him, but when you needed Bob to kind of bail you out and have those big time moments, Bob could do that. And that's the hope, that Hellebuyck can be that piece for the San Jose Sharks and really continue to kind of push this effort forward, so that you're not going into 2-3 years from now, when we kind of expect this team to really start being a real contender, you're not having questions about, well, can Askarov be this guy, or can Ravensburg be this guy, or whomever else is in net for San Jose. You're not really having any of those questions about your nets. Like you feel Hellebuyck can be the guy. And I think, though, for San Jose, you would 100% try to cut down on the starts, and that's kind of the tricky part, where you have a legit number one goalie and you want to try to get him out there as often as possible. But we've seen that Hellebuyck in the regular season versus Hellebuyck in the postseason, there's been some issues there, and you do wonder if maybe getting the guy down to 55 to 57 starts, and then having a backup who can start the rest of those games, maybe that puts Hellebuyck in a better position to succeed when he gets to the playoffs, right? It's not that he's posted like horrific numbers in the playoffs, but in 58 games and playoff games, which is a pretty big sample size, 903 save percentage with the 290 goals against. But the past 3 seasons that the Winnipeg Jets have been in the playoffs, it's been a lot of save percentages that start with an 8, and some really nasty performances, especially when you go to that 23-24 season, where that Winnipeg Jets team was they were the President's Trophy team, and they absolutely just collapsed in the playoffs there. And I know they got out of it, but just not a great performance from them over the last couple seasons in the playoffs here. So the hope is that Hellebuyck, maybe you're able to kind of manage it a little bit better. But as the Sharks team gets better and has a better offense, and you expect this, right? We fully expect, when this Sharks offense kind of hits its peak, to be one of the premier offenses in the NHL, right? With Macklin, Celebrini, and Misa and Smith and whomever else is, here, Stenberg, all these other players, right? You fully expect this offense to be a, top 5 offense night in, night out. And that takes a lot of pressure off your goalie. And maybe he's not having to kind of deal with the same amount of workload that he had to deal with the Jets. So, bringing in Hellebuyck is really kind of does solve that. You're not just hoping Askarov or Ravensburg and whoever else can be the guy. You have the guy, and you have literally one of the best guys who's done it over the last 10 seasons, basically, for the Winnipeg Jets. So we're going to discuss kind of the case against bringing in Hellebuyck, as well as kind of what a potential trade might look like. So we'll get to that here in just 1 second. Running a business shouldn't feel like you're trying to connect a bunch of systems that were never designed to work together. One app for accounting, another for inventory, another for sales, and somehow none of them talk to each other. That's where Odoo comes in. Odoo is an all-in-one business management software that brings every part of your business together in one powerful platform. From sales and accounting to inventory and marketing, everything works in one place. Odoo is one platform to manage, grow, and scale your business. The best organizations know that success isn't just about talent. It's about having everyone working towards the same goal. That's just true in sports as it is in business. You think about the Sharks and the way that they've been kind of building this thing, right? That sustainable success, getting as many high draft picks as possible, and then hopefully nailing them. The organization's had a vision. They're sticking to it, and now you should start to see the results because everyone working from the same playbook. Great organizations win because operations matter. That's why you should get Odoo. Odoo is one platform to manage, grow, and scale your business. Try for free today at odoo.com/lockedon. That's odoo.com/lockedon. All right, before we finish up, of course, want to thank you for making Locked On Sharks your first listen. When you're done with this episode, go check out the Locked On NHL show. They got you covered Monday through Friday with all the biggest stories around the NHL. I'm sure they'll be talking about Mr. Hellebuyck here pretty soon. So go check them out wherever you're listening to podcasts. And of course, you can watch on YouTube as well. So the case against Hellebuyck is also kind of easy. One, it's going to be really expensive to acquire Connor Hellebuyck, right? And we've seen a couple of these premier players go recently, right? Quinn Hughes, Brady Tkachuk, and the cost is 3 first-round picks, basically, and however you can put that together. And for San Jose, right, you do have plenty of assets and you have plenty of stuff where if you did want to make this happen, you could do it, right? And again, this all depends on if Connor Hellebuyck wanted to come to San Jose. But assuming he was opening to it, one, right, you would assume Askarov would be part of the trade because I don't think you can have Askarov and Hellebuyck on the same team, right? Askarov, who wanted out of Nashville because he wanted a chance to kind of be the guy. Well, if you bring in Connor Hellebuyck, like, sorry, buddy, like Askarov is not going to get that opportunity. So you'd assume Askarov would be part of the deal back to Winnipeg because, right, Winnipeg, who's still trying to compete and play games and stuff like that, not the kind of deepest of goalie rooms right now. You have Stuart Skinner, great, and then you have a bunch of guys who are like 24 and younger on the kind of playing with, who don't have a ton of NHL starts. So if you at least put together like Askarov, who would most likely kind of be the starter, and maybe Stuart Skinner, probably more of a tandem, but at least it gives them an option and a guy who you expect to continue to kind of grow and develop over the next couple seasons. So you would assume Askarov would have to be part of it. So there's at least a former first-round pick in there. One, you would assume two, you would have to either give up a high-end prospect / roster, right? One of those kind of tweener guys who maybe they're ready for some NHL time, maybe not type of guys. And right, you could look at I don't think the Sharks aren't going to give up any of the core players, right? Misa, of course, Celebrity, Smith, Stenberg. I don't think the Sharks are giving up one of those guys, right? As a former, all those guys are former top 4 picks. It's hard for me to see them do that. But maybe a guy like Musty, maybe, I think Musty would make a lot of sense, especially on a Winnipeg team that's, would be at this point, right? If you trade Hellebuyck, you're full on starting the rebuild, right? So a guy like Musty, who's 20 years old, maybe a guy like B said, if they wanted some more center depth down the middle, maybe, even just roster players right now. Maybe if they wanted a guy like Colin Graff, that would, make some sense from there. You do wonder if maybe like a guy like Chernyshov might be a piece that would be available as well. It's, again, like you have to, when you're acquiring a guy like Hellebuyck, you have to give up stuff. Like you can't just say, please take my garbage and hopefully it works out. Like maybe it's a guy like Polkamp, or maybe it's a guy like Cagnoni. Like you would have to assume players like that would be in the mix. And, I think for San Jose, like I said, I don't think the guys like, I think Misa, Stenberg, of course, Celebrini, Smith, like all those guys it would be hard for me to imagine them giving up one of those guys. But I think some of these other guys would definitely be potentially in the mix. And then maybe you're giving up a first-round pick, right? Like a top 10 first-round pick in the 2027 draft, like top 10 protected first-round pick in the 2027 draft. Maybe that's what you're doing and to get it done. So it would be very expensive, right? The other concern is last year a fluke, or is there cracks in the foundation here? And I do think that is right, because if you acquire a guy like Hellebuyck, like you're expecting him to be basically a top 5 goalie for the rest, his time in San Jose, right? Top 5 goalie in the NHL in his time in San Jose. Was last year just a down year? Again, injuries, and maybe he wasn't happy and stuff. But if you spend all this and then Hellebuyck, where's the line where you're like, okay, maybe this trade wasn't worth it. Like, if he's the 7th best goalie or the 10th best goalie in the league or the 12th best goalie in the league? Yes, that makes you better now, but if he's playing that level in 2 to 3 years, when you're trying to potentially win a Stanley Cup, is that going to be good enough? Are you going to have to try to look for someone else, because Connor Hellebuyck, who will be, in his mid-30s by then, starting to decline, right? I mean, Father Time is undefeated, unless your name's Tom Brady. That is like a legit worry. I don't worry too much, because I do think Hellebuyck will, I think he's that good, but I mean, the dude's played a lot of games, and you hope that mileage isn't starting to catch up to him and starting to kind of take its toll right now. So I'm if it costs the Sharks, like assuming Askarov, a first-round pick, and a guy like a Musty or Cagnoni or someone in that ilk, and you're not really losing like a big-time roster player, like it's really hard to not say no to that if you're me. But I mean, I think there's gonna be a lot of teams interested. Again, Hellebuyck has all the control in the world here. And I'm very intrigued to see where this goes and who's willing to kind of make it happen here for right now. If you're the Jets, you want to try to get as much as you can, because this is your big opportunity to either reload or start your rebuild or whatever it is. Like, it makes a lot of sense for the Jets to try to kind of cash in with the best offer that they can possibly get here. So that's gonna be it for me today. So we'll be back next week. We'll do our worst case scenarios. I know we were gonna do it today, but I wanted to talk about Hellebuyck. So we'll do worst case scenarios next week, as well as some other stuff, and we'll start gearing up for training camp here as well. So make sure you're following along wherever you get podcasts. Of course, you can watch on YouTube as well. Follow the show on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and on TikTok at Locked On Sharks. Follow me on Twitter and Blue Sky at MyFryhole. Until then, bye, friends.